So we are back in action after week 7. Some people are happy, some people are sad, some people don't really care.
Some people are cranky.
All 3 of us are rather cranky, especially Jim. But it's because the Pats are 7-0, not dominatingly enough.
Yeah.
But we can get into last Thursday's game. Kansas City 30, Denver 6. Kansas City goes 5-2. Denver goes to 2-5. But the Chiefs feel like they went to 2-5 after losing Mahomes.
Yeah, that was a huge blow to that team. I mean, the Madden curse lives on, right? Every year.
I don't know. It goes on and off.
How is he back practicing?
That's amazing. Yeah, the story out today was
dislocated kneecap. He's back practicing today.
It must have not been as bad as it sounded. I don't know. But to me, I still wouldn't expect him back for a couple weeks. Even though he's practicing, I understand. But they're going to put bubble wrap on him, I think. So he's ready for the playoffs.
Lindsey and Freeman, they split carries again. Freeman got the better end with touchdown this time. So this is still consistent. Everything else stat-wise or fantasy production, this was really Kansas City's defense that stood out in this game.
Yeah, and the interesting story that came out again today or yesterday was Emmanuel Sanders got traded. He's a 49er now. So this is Courtland Sutton's team. I mean, he led the team in targets, but they are giving the passes to the running backs a lot. I don't know if that's in a Joe Flacco thing or just a weak arm thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, Royce Freeman had 4 receptions and obviously the touchdown. So I think it's just hit or miss with those two. You don't know who's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, Courtland Sutton coming through 6 receptions, 87 yards. I mean, he was probably the lone bright spot for Denver in this game throughout. Upward trajectory, I think, for him moving forward as far as target volume, because who really else is on that offense that's going to get volume share? I mean, Noah Fant's had an underperforming year so far for a first-year tight end. They, kept games as little as 1 catch for 20 yards. I definitely need to have more, playmakers in this Denver offense, and Flacco, I think, just needs to retire at this point.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing will be with Emmanuel Sanders moving on. Are they going to drop the lockdown corners on him? Is that going to really hinder Courtland Sutton's upside? If he's getting, put up I'm not sure what their schedule looks like, but I'm sure there's some good.
Has to mean something for Deshaun Hamilton too, the former 4th-round pick for Denver. How they're going to proceed.
If Dan was here, he'd be super excited for Deshaun Hamilton.
Deshaun Hamilton, let me tell you, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, I think Sutton's value goes up, but it could be a double-edged sword. So we'll have to see.
You have one quarterback goes down this game. You have another quarterback in Matt Ryan goes down, and the Falcons lost to the Rams 37-10. Rams go to 4-3. Falcons are 1-6.
Yeah, Falcons are poo-poo.
I was trying to place a bet this week because Falcons face Seattle, and the bookie sites have a lot of them pulled the game. And we're not even putting it up after a day. Usually they have a day to readjust lines.
The Falcons-Seattle game?
Yeah, to get money on different sides and everything. So there's such uncertainty about whether Matt Ryan's playing or not. And that dictates such a line swing because I think it opened at 3.5 or something along those lines.
Oh, wow. It's way different now.
So I just wanted to jam a ton of money on Seattle.
3.5, that's
and I couldn't find the bet anywhere.
Yeah. And even before he got hurt, he didn't look good. Obviously it's an ankle injury. I don't expect him to be playing for the next. He was in a walking boot after the game, if I remember right. Julio, his standard 9 targets, 6 for 93. Austin Hooper still killed it on the touchdowns.
That was garbage time though.
But it still counts. That's what Atlanta lives in now.
It does count, but previous weeks he was getting a lot of production pre-garbage time. And this it's just certain inconsistencies are starting to show up. His stats are still performing, but I still like Hooper, but I'm not. He's the tight end 1 for the next 5 years mode. Some people are getting into.
Yeah, I think he's a bit inflated from his touchdown production. But I mean, he's getting a decent amount of targets. He only had 5 this game, but generally he does pretty good. But the interesting about the Falcons is this run game. I mean, they did nothing. They couldn't get anything going.
Freeman got ejected in the game for throwing that punch to Aaron Donald in the 3rd quarter. I mean, he finished the game with only 7 carries for 19 yards.
Yep. And Ito Smith got hurt.
Smith got hurt now. So what do you really make of that Atlanta backfield moving forward?
Brian Hill looks decent. He could step up. But Freeman's still going to be there. Mm-hmm. This is also the weird thing where like Freeman's ejection, I watched it live, and it is one of those things where you go, I don't know if he should have gotten ejected for it, because he had 3 Rams players who are shoving him, pushing him, bullying up on him, and actually like getting in his face and shoving him. And like, what are you supposed to do when 3 guys are actually bullying you on the field? Yeah. Granted, he did swing, so I understand the rule, why it exists. But it's like there should be some context understanding there, that it's not like he's a dirty guy who's just going out there and punching people.
I think it's more of a, if you do anything, you get thrown out sort of issue. They're trying to just get rid of any of that garbage, especially when a couple years ago with the Odell Beckham thing, where he was throwing punches and ended up getting suspended after the game, and people are like, "Why? You saw him doing this during the game. Why don't you throw him out of the game?" So I think they're trying to set a precedent and get rid of guys like that.
I mean, it's interesting to evaluate this Falcons team moving forward. Right here, you're 1-6. What is the future of this team holds? I mean, Matt Ryan's almost hitting that trajectory as far as the last chapters of his career.
They just signed Julio.
Offensive line is not where it even be, and especially they invested 2 high resources in the draft this coming year. I can't help but think this is the end of Dan Quinn in Atlanta for sure. His time seems to be over.
Yeah, I mean, 1-6 is kind of speaks for itself, and getting crushed by some of these teams that are the Rams are good, but to lose by 27 points is a lot.
Gerald Everett stepped up in this game. He's still getting a ton of targets, so he might be the emerging tight end value to pick up in redraft this year.
He actually led the team in targets.
Yeah, it's just there's more consistency with that occurring, that we can start to have some belief finally.
Yeah,
and I think that's helped Goff in the short term here, right? Because the tight end right there, closest receiver to the ball as far as potential opportunity, and less of a chance of a turnover, of course. I know that's great evaluation by me, but overall, though, it's definitely a unique thing to see in Sean McVay's offense for this former second-round pick to take the next step, it looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting because, before the season went, and I was expecting that Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp would be about around the same targets, and they did, 7, 8. But I don't see Todd Gurley had 1 target, which he scored a touchdown on. But Gerald Everett had 10 targets. That's not something that I don't think anybody really accounted for, because tight end was non-existent in this offense, up until 3 weeks ago, really.
And what about this Rams defense, right? They go give up 55 against the Buccaneers, and then 30 points. I forget who they played the week before. Not this past week, but the previous week.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But they gave up 30 plus points, and a lot of people are dogging them as a defense. And here they come up with a strong performance against Matt Ryan and the Falcons. Granted, this Falcons offense isn't what it was compared to previous years, but still a somewhat formidable quarterback that exited the game because of play as well.
I mean, did Jalen Ramsey play this game? I'm pretty sure he did, right?
Jalen did play this
game. So I mean, that's a big step up.
That'll
help. The Falcons aren't doing too great, but usually they do put up points even when they're losing games. They usually end up with a lot more points in garbage time. But I think with Matt Ryan going down, it kind of made it a little more difficult.
Speaking of putting up points, Bills 31, Dolphins 21. Ooh. I know the spread was like roughly 17 or something like that to the Dolphins.
Dolphins beat the spread.
But the Bills are legit, guys. Even though it's the Dolphins they played against, they're 5-1. It still speaks volumes when a team's 5-1 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Bills. I think they have. It's funny because I like their quarterback and I like their defense, and their offense is kind of pieced together as far as like skill positions, because you don't really have any huge superstar players on that offense. So it's interesting that they were able to put up 31 points against the Dolphins. Yeah, I mean, looks like Mark Walton led the team in carries for the Dolphins.
The only highlight of the Dolphins was Devontae Parker, 5 for 55, 1 touchdown, 10 targets.
Yeah.
So they've turned it around where the belief in the past was pretty negative on Devontae Parker about like he's going to be gone from the team soon, blah blah blah. Where now it's turned around where he's their staple, I think.
Yeah.
Preston Williams too, 6 for 82. I believe he had a strong performance as a rookie wide receiver. Many people were down on him in the offseason because of his off the field performance issues that he had, and here he is getting some love here from Ryan Fitzpatrick / Josh Rosen.
Did they both play? Oh no, it was just Fitzpatrick.
I think it was just Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, this one was just Fitzpatrick.
Okay. I'm assuming they'll stick with him. The Rosen situation is really interesting because I mean, I don't understand. It just seems like every single team he goes to, it's just in the dumps. So I don't know where he'll be next year. Maybe he'll stay in Miami.
We'll find out after next year.
But yeah, I mean, Buffalo, Frank Gore put up 55 yards, and with a reception for 11 yards. I mean, Frank Gore is like old reliable. He'll get you like at least 8 points, and maybe he'll score like 16 if he scores a touchdown. But he's a guy you can plug into your lineup and know where your floor is at. He's always going to get you that many points, apparently no matter what team he's on. So
Frank Gore looks like a beast when you compare him to Joe Mixon.
Ugh.
Bengals 17, Jaguars 27. Jaguars go to 3-4. Bengals are at 0-7. Something's going on in Cincinnati. You have Joe Mixon barely getting anything done. Granted, they were playing from behind, I think, but you do have some emergence in some of their receivers.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Mixon, 2 yards rushing on 10 carries. That's ridiculous. I don't know what to say about him. He was the focal point of that offense, or so it seemed. And, I guess the offense is kind of just crumbling around him, that it's, not able to do anything. But, yeah, I mean, Alex Erickson, which is a name that, did any of you guys know of before the season? 8 for 137?
14 targets.
14 targets, yeah. Tyler Boyd also had 14 targets, only caught 5 of them. But is that a name that's going to last, or is this a flash in the pan?
So it seemed like he was a slot guy before when I paid attention to him a little bit in the past, but I still just stayed away because it was Bengals. Andy Dalton had the 3 interceptions. I didn't see what the interceptions look like. This is the type of thing where while we're evaluating Andy Dalton, if the Bengals are drafting their next quarterback next year, or if they're going to find out stuff about Finley. The moment Finley comes in, we know that is the signal they're probably drafting their quarterback next year unless he does something miraculous. But these 3 interceptions, something doesn't work with Dalton.
Yeah, and it's 22 for 43, which is a super low completion percentage. I mean, they did throw the ball a ton that game because they were playing from behind. But yeah, I mean, I think he's just done, honestly.
I mean, it's not just primetime Dalton anymore. It's all the time Dalton right
seriously.
now as far as how he's performing. Without looking at the stats, who's the leading rusher on the Bengals this week?
I mean, I don't
know. I know it's not Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I can't even name any running backs on the team.
Andy Dalton, 4 carries, 33 yards, and a touchdown.
Okay.
And a touchdown.
How about you? Bernard had 0 yards on 4 carries. That's impressive.
But this Bengals offense is really in for a serious overhaul. I would not be surprised if they potentially moved AJ Green at some point
when he gets healthy.
When he gets healthy here, if they try to deal him off or something before his contract goes up, unless he got extended. I'm not too sure. But this Bengals offense really needs a lot more players around it surrounding Zach Taylor's offense. I just think a lot of people, they went and grabbed the hot coach that was tied to Sean McVay, and you're going to see instances like this where it's not going to pan out right away, and I think people are grasping straws.
Yeah, and I mean, to look at the Jaguars offense real quick, I mean, Minshew played fine, 255 and a touchdown. Fournette got the ball 29 times and was still running at 4.5 per carry, got 131 yards. And it's the classic Jacksonville rotation of receivers where Dede was the main target this week with 9, and he had 103 yards.
Thing with the Jaguars receivers is we've had DJ Chark having this emergence or whatever happening now, but there's always been this kind of question mark hanging this season so far. But then you look at Dede, and he's been consistently the target getter. So Dede's definitely in the top 2 of the receivers in Jacksonville. The question is whether Chark's going to end up being that other one, or is it Marquise Lee once he finally gets his stuff going?
Chris Conley, who is the number 2 target guy this week with 7 targets. Yeah. So it's, who knows? And even Keelan Cole, he had 2 targets. I mean, he's a guy that was last year, the first 3 or 4 weeks was like, okay, this is the guy. And then it was, oh, well, maybe it's Dede. Oh, maybe it's this good. So.
And the folklore story of Gardner Minshew may be running for only about 4 more weeks, as rumors report that Nick Foles will be coming back roughly around week 11 to back onto the field against the Colts that week.
Okay.
So we'll be interested to see how we can truly evaluate this Jaguars, offense moving forward with its franchise quarterback.
You also have franchise quarterback in the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, leading the way this week, 42-30 over the Lions. Vikings go 5-2, Lions 2-3-1. Cousins, beautiful game. This is the thing with Cousins in fantasy. You're gonna get some games where you're just like, why am I starting Cousins? And then you get other weeks where you're like, yeah, he's a top 5 fantasy QB.
4 touchdowns, 338 yards. I mean, the big story here was that Adam Thielen went down early in the game. He still had a touchdown for 25 yards, but it'd be interesting to see where he ends up. I mean, they've already ruled him out for the game tomorrow night on Thursday. We'll see how long he ends up being out for. It's probably going to be a couple weeks. But Stefan Diggs picked it up, 7 receptions, 143 yards. And Dalvin Cook, man, he has been unreal this year. Like, you know, everybody had questions about his health, whether he'd be a big enough part of the offense. And, I mean, 2 touchdowns, 142 carrying yards. There's not much more else to say. He's in the top 3 or 4 running backs. Probably 2 or 3 right now.
He's up there. Like, I'm happy with him. Olabisi Johnson stepping up, 8 targets, 4 for 40, 1 touchdown.
Who?
Olabisi Johnson. So everybody was always trying to figure out what was going on with WR3 in Minnesota. Some people thought it was Chad Beebe. Some people thought it was going to be Josh Doxson. Some people thought it was Laquan Treadwell. Like, all these different guys. Nobody ever solidified as a 3. Not saying Olabisi Johnson's the guy who's going to be that WR3, but
yeah,
coming in, this is starting to look like pay attention.
Yeah, and Kyle Rudolph finally had a good game. 5 receptions, 59 yards and a touchdown. 58 yards and a touchdown. He might end up filling a lot of that role that not exactly the Adam Thielen role, but I think he's going to get a lot more targets with Thielen out. I think that Cousins is going to look for him.
Him and Ito chop targets, 6 apiece on that. So it's not just a clear cut, here's the main tight end with the Vikings.
Start your Vikings players coming up in fantasy, folks, because the next 4 weeks their schedule is the Redskins, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Broncos.
Yeah,
that seems like a pretty soft schedule for a team. I believe right now is 4-2 coming up, and to hand, you know, you could be looking at 8-2 potentially coming up into your bye in, I believe, week 10 or 11 here. Everything you love about this offense. Yes, the Adam Thielen injury scares, but that could be an opportunity for Kyle Rudolph to step up more and get involved in the passing game. And, you know, definitely a lot happy for Diggs owners to see the course being turned after a scary start to the year.
I'd sell high right now on Diggs. Just get rid of him, get the money while you can.
Boy, and don't forget the big story out of Detroit was, well, there's 2 big stories. Kerryon Johnson, you know, he's moved to IR now. I think they're going to have a procedure. It sounds like he's probably going to be out for the season, or at least,
carry
on to the bench.
Carry on, dry humping Johnson.
Yeah, but the big story, Marvin Jones with 4 touchdowns.
Man.
Yeah.
Congrats to those who actually started him this week.
10 for 93. I did start him in 1 league.
Ooh, winners.
Saucy.
Yes. Out of need.
But this is the part where you look at these stats and you go, you know, the Lions have been performing. They're losing some games that, you know, they're 2-3-1. They don't seem like a 2-3-1 team. They're at worst a 500 team.
Well, they got that one game stolen from them, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, I think losing Kerryon Johnson's going to hurt, but they were kind of not focusing on him anyway. They were kind of splitting the ball a lot more. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, Amendola had a big game. Obviously, Marvin Jones had a big game. Galladay had 2 targets, so he must have gotten locked down by the Minnesota defense or double covered, and they kind of had to find other ways to get the ball elsewhere.
What do you make of that Detroit backfield now? Right now with Kerryon out, there's Ty Johnson back there, you know, smooches as they call him, and J.D. McKissick. And also, you know, there's been some talk about do the Lions trade for a running back? Do they go out there and get Kenyon Drake or a Jay Ajayi out there in free agency to fill in the void for those carries for the remainder of the year? Are they really in any potential course of contention at all?
I mean, they're 2-3-1. I think there's that chance that they could step up and start winning some games. I mean, it's really not a bad team. I mean, the Vikings are a very good team, I think. I think they're in the top 10, top 5 in the league. But Detroit was impressive in the games that they were playing. And they were competitive in almost every game that they played. I think they're going to go to Ty Johnson first and J.D. McKissick second. Ty Johnson was more of a scat back, so he'll be getting those receptions. I wouldn't mind taking him in fantasy right now, taking a shot on him, starting him. But it's an interesting situation. It kind of reminds me actually when the Vikings lost Adrian Peterson a couple times, and they had like Matt Asiata and Jerick McKinnon, and they just had like a row of like average guys that they didn't go out and get a guy, and those guys were okay, but it wasn't. You never knew which one was going to be the big.
It's like, Matt Asiata, 1 yard touchdown
every
week.
Yeah, but I mean, he put up points, and McKinnon as well. I mean, he'd get a ton of receptions, so it kind of reminds me of that situation. So it'll be interesting to see.
That was a big battle in the division. Also in that division, Packers. That whole division's a beast.
Yeah.
Packers 42, Raiders 24. Packers go to 6-1. Raiders 3-3. Aaron Rodgers finally has his breakout game of the year.
6 touchdowns. Yeah. Unfortunately, I had a choice between Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz in one of my leagues, and I chose incorrectly, and I started Carson Wentz, and I will not make that mistake again. But yeah, I mean, Oakland is oddly enough 3-3. They are now a 500 team when everybody thought they'd be 0-6, 1-5. But yeah, I mean, Rodgers looked amazing. There's no way around it. The big target guy was, I guess,
everybody. It was
MVS.
so spread out.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it was spread out. MVS had the most yards, but he only had 3 targets. But he had 2 receptions for 133 yards, which is crazy. But yeah, he really did spread it around a lot, which is pretty interesting. Aaron Jones having another big game with a touchdown, only 50 yards carries, but yeah, I mean that offense looks good and that team looks good.
On the other side of the ball, Raiders, Derek Carr looked decent, 22 for 28, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Darren Waller confirmed.
Monster.
He might be the guy that when people win leagues this year and redraft, that it's going to be because they jumped on that guy ahead of others.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's a lot of talk in the offseason about him. He was slowly getting hyped up a little bit here and there, but there really wasn't known. I mean, Jared Cook was good last year, but you didn't expect it from a no-name player that really hasn't played it all in the league.
You jumped on him in our Dynasty League. I'm curious, just to share some thoughts with people, is like, how come you got to him the quickest out of everybody? And were you kind of speculative on him, or did you wait for what you think was like, okay, I know this is going to be a tight end, I'm struggling at tight end or something like that? What was the thought process that made you pick him up when you did?
I mean, he was in the offseason, he was talked about, and when they didn't draft a tight end, it was kind of like, well, I guess he's the de facto starter. And with Jared Cook there last year, who got a ton of targets, it was kind of a natural, like, well, you might as well pick him up and take a shot on him. So I right after free agency cleared, or the first free agency I took him, and yeah, it's been pretty good.
Can either of you name any other pass catchers outside of Darren Waller on Oakland?
Tyrell Williams.
Tyrell Williams.
After that,
Foster Moreau.
Yeah, it's all these guys and just a mixed bag of people that are, and Darren Waller's on the top of the list performing. It'll be interesting from future drafts that we'll evaluate from fantasy to see who Oakland potentially brings in, or I should say Las Vegas, who they potentially bring in for their future pass catchers to complement Derek Carr. But Josh Jacobs, another phenomenal game, 24 carries. I think he had 121 carries, 124 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
overall.
six per carry.
6 yards per carry.
Very solid.
He is outperforming any other offensive running back that was somewhat hyped to both be a decent running back class, and some underperformers in there like David Montgomery and such. But Jacobs proving he was well worth that first round pick.
Yeah, and interesting, we said Tyrell Williams is one of the receivers. He had 0 receptions this game. I don't know if he was out.
I think he was out.
Was he? Yeah. That would make sense then, yeah. But that's an interesting thing.
You know who wasn't out, but seemed like it all year? DeAndre Hopkins finally showed up.
It's about time. It took Will Fuller getting hurt.
yeah. Texans showed up, but the Colts, for some reason, they've got a lot of luck this year on their side. Colts win 30-23. Colts go to 4-2 to take lead in the division. Texans 4-3. Ross, resident Colts fan. How are you feeling?
Listen, I mean, this was Jacoby Brissett's breakout game of the year. It's so interesting because Previous Colts games, you've seen a balanced offensive attack overall and how Frank Reich's designed it. And this was a game really where Jacoby took over. It's interesting to note that, yes, the Texans secondary has been very weak all year. You even saw them go out this past week and trade a third-round pick to Oakland to get Garyon Conley, the former first-round pick that was there out of Ohio State. So, but, Brissett had a great game overall. I think this was a typical Jacoby Brissett, type of performance. You're used to him being the balanced offensive guy in that system, not to expect little or less. He hasn't turned over the ball much this year. The Colts are the least penalized team in the league. When you have that balance, it's great success overall. I think the most interesting thing that really happened in this game was Zach Pascal broke out for 6 receptions for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're used to seeing those stats from T.Y. Hilton, who somewhat had a respectable game with 6 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown. But in his career, he always went off against Houston. But this offense is clicking on all cylinders, and it's behind that great offensive line as well.
Do you believe in Pascal for the long term, or is this just a
flash in the pan?
It's interesting. I don't believe in him for the long term, and the reason being why is because you have Paris Campbell coming back this week. There's Devin Funchess supposed to be coming back the week after. So long lost Devin S. Scrumptious that we forgot about. So I think there's a lot of people that are going to feed the ball in this offense. And the one thing that's really surprising me about this offense this year is how little Jack Doyle's been involved. I think Doyle would have been involved a lot more as far as the short and intermediate routes, but people are stepping up, and when their number's called upon, it's a very impressive thing I'm seeing from this Colts offense right now.
It looks like they're running, and this has been a Jack Doyle staple and really a Colts staple, where they're running the tight ends through these kind of short routes, and they're throwing the ball. I mean, he had 5 targets, which is the same as Ebron. Ebron just had those long routes and had 70 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, I mean, they fantasy wise, neither of those tight ends are really going to be great options, I don't think, because they split time too much. It's tough. Pascal's interesting. I think you're on the button with them just not having any other receivers to go. But I was interested that Marlon Mack had 44 yards and that's it. They seem to really, throwing the ball was working and they just stuck with it.
Yeah, Marlon Mack's been, great throughout the year, and this is probably the first game all year where they really haven't had to rely on him for the 20-plus carries that we're used to have a workhorse back in this system. So, but kudos.
Yeah, and my favorite part is the most consistent player every year, Will Fuller. He will always score no points for like 3 or 4 weeks, have like 1 week where he scores 40 points, and then gets hurt without fail. It's just almost guaranteed every year, and staying true to his form, he got hurt this game with 1 reception. So, he amazed and when nobody was starting him, and, he's back to where he was. But I'm happy Hopkins is back to, I guess, more normal for him. He still had a ton of targets going into this game, but he finally had a breakout with a touchdown and 106 yards.
He also got a touchdown called back as well from that sack play that was called a sack when Hopkins was down, Watson was down. Kenny Stills looked pretty impressive for 4 receptions for 105 yards as well. But that rushing offense for Houston's still an abominable.
So now we get into a couple terrible games of the week. Cardinals 27, Giants 21. Cardinals go to 3-3-1, deceptive record. Giants are 1-6. 1-6.
But it make me sick. Yeah.
This game was rough from Kyler Murray perspective.
The Giants are 2-5.
They're 2-5.
2-5.
Why did I have 1-6? I misrecorded it then.
I don't know. That's what it says on NFL.com. I guess.
I don't know why, but I misrecorded it.
Yeah.
They beat Washington.
Oh, they beat Washington.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, but the Giants still suck. So you're 1-6, 2-5. They're not making the playoffs. Daniel Jones looked like a rookie in this game. I think we all kind of expected it. It's also funny because it was a battle of the rookies, and Kyler Murray won, I guess. He played not great either. But, I guess the Cardinals' defense, I think, ended up scoring a bunch of those Oh no, it was Chase Edmonds. That's
Chase
what it was.
Edmonds did
Chase Edmonds killed it, oddly enough. David Johnson's an interesting situation. I don't know if he's going to play again this week. I think he's supposed to, but it'll be interesting to see. But Chase Edmonds looked really good.
My condolences to David Johnson owners. This 27, I think he was going into this season.
Yeah.
This
and
is a
lot of
very
use.
hard spot.
A lot of use.
To get somebody to buy. This is where the price is going to really start dipping soon. Your best bet sells coming right after he recovers from this.
And hopefully he can put up a couple big games and people are trying to get into the playoffs. Yeah, it might be this is going towards the last hurrah of David Johnson, or maybe it's just, a bump in the road. But when someone behind you performs that well, there's always a lot of speculation of like, oh, okay, all right, looks like he's done. Looks like we're gonna move on. So we'll see.
Good sign for the Giants out of this was Golden Tate. 11 targets, 6 for 80 yards, no touchdowns, but this kind of fills in the gap of Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. What is our other piece? You also have Saquon, obviously.
Right. Yeah, he's pretty good too. This is kind of what I expected. Not this much volume with 11 targets, but I kind of knew Golden Tate would fill this role where he's just going to get a ton of targets. He's going to put up decent yards, but he's going to be that safety blanket for who I thought was going to be Eli Manning, but I guess Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, he missed the first 4 games of the season, right? And here he is. I think this is his 3rd week back now.
Yeah.
And 2 really strong performances out of 3 games from him coming back in. I'm really just mind-boggled that they would bring back Saquon Barkley. Yes, he had 18 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. I just think this is a lost year for the Giants and the entire organization. I thought they'd take a little more conservative route with him. But, also I guess too, because that entire running back, field is really banged up. I mean, Gallman had the concussion. Jonathan Hillman was hit or miss. So.
Well, he's dropped down to the practice squad.
The practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's superhuman and actually recovered. I mean, they had that injury and he was like back making cuts like a week or 2 later. So
superhuman.
He's not even. I don't think he even has a designation. Like, it's crazy to me. Sterling Shepard's still questionable. That looks like this concussion's really hitting him hard. Kind of weird to say that, but yeah, it seemed to be. I don't know when he'll come back. And if he does come back, what sort of volume is he going to get? So that's another situation to kind of look out for.
How about the disappearance of Evan Ingram in this one? 1 catch for 6 yards.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming off an injury, so that might have hampered him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's cause for concern. It's definitely cause for concern. But yeah, I mean, overall, both these teams, there's very few assets from a fantasy perspective that I really want on the team other than Saquon and David Johnson. The rest, I mean, Evan Ingram is good if he can maintain, but he's always had that injury history, so I don't know.
This was a rough game, but the roughest game of the week to watch. I tried multiple times to go to this game and could not stay on there for more than like 2 plays. 49ers 9, Redskins 0. 49ers are 6-0, but that did not feel like a 6-0 team winning a game. Redskin, there was a bad weather this game, tons of rain and stuff. So your receivers, your quarterbacks are not going to have as good as stats because it was a real downpour. This was bad.
Yeah, I still don't know what to make out of these 49ers, honestly. It just baffles me that they're undefeated and they just don't have any, I don't want to say any offensive talent, but I mean,
Jimmy G failing to impress us once again.
151 yards and an interception off of 12 completions. That's it, just 12. Tevin Coleman averaged 3 per carry. Matt Breida averaged 4.4, but I mean, this is not a high-powered offense. So it's amazing to me. Do you know who the top receiver was this game?
Kittle, maybe? I don't know.
Kendrick Bourne, 3 receptions, 69 yards, 4 targets. Kittle did lead the team with 5 targets.
There's a reason they went and got Emmanuel Sanders then.
Yeah, so I mean, he'll probably help spread this offense, but there's a long history of new receivers or receivers coming to new teams and not really performing that great until they get acclimated into the system. I wouldn't expect too much out of Emmanuel Sanders. I think he would probably put up more in Denver than he will here, but it's hard to say. But I mean, they keep finding ways to win, and this wasn't a hard team to beat.
Can we just call this the slip and slide game?
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like the entire time as they panned to the cameras and just seeing water just splash up in the air after every tackle.
And it was a great video of Bosa after making the tackle at the end of the game, running and sliding. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. In the game after this one, or I don't know if this was a 4 o'clock game. No, that was a 1 o'clock game, right?
1 o'clock.
So, Chargers, Titans. Chargers 20, Titans 23. Chargers go to 2-5. Titans are 3-4. Titans seem like everything was starting to fall apart. Wheels are coming off. And this was a much-needed win for them to stay in the playoff hunt, potentially with that division, because it's going to be a tight race no matter what happens there. Chargers, we had such high hopes compared to last year. Now the Chargers are going back to their old, we can't finish games. For some reason.
2-5 for the Chargers. And the Titans is super interesting because, I mean, this is now, I guess, Ryan Tannehill's team. And he played well. He had 312 yards with 2 touchdowns. I mean, he threw an interception, but 23 for 29.
He was good.
He found connections with Corey Davis and A.J. Brown, who are those top 2 options, I guess, on that team. Pretty interesting.
Is that the worst play calling you've ever seen at the half-yard line to end the game?
Was it they just kept on running it?
They ran the ball. There's like 30 seconds left in the game or something like that. They're going to get 4 downs on the goal line. They have no timeouts. They run the ball for the first play. And then your next play, you go, okay, we need to throw the ball. Throw an incompletion if there's nothing immediately. That's normally what you would do play calling wise.
Right, to stop the clock.
They ran it. Got stuffed. Game over.
Wow. So they ran it twice and that was it?
That was it.
Like, you can't tell me Phillip Rivers can't jump over the pile on a sneak or something just to get it in there?
Yeah, that's interesting. The 2 runs and then no other plays baffles me too, because you got to at least have something drawn up for a passing play where you can just throw it over the end zone and still can run it on 3rd down.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot that's how that ended in a run, and they only lost by 3. They could have kicked it too. You know, they had that option. So I like the aggressiveness going for the win, but I mean,
there's clock management. That was just the worst clock management. Yeah. That's on Rivers. That's on the coach. I mean, Rivers is such a cowboy that he should have just audibled out and been like, you know what, we're just going to throw it. I don't care.
Yeah, well, but that's also why you have Derrick Henry too. I mean, you have this guy that's supposed to be that goal line superstar, and the Titans' offensive line, at least last year, was supposed to be pretty good, and they're, you know, to not be able to push it through and when it matters the most, that's a problem.
So you also have Keenan Allen, 11 targets. He's getting the volume. Didn't get a ton of production, but good targets.
I just realized I got that whole thing backwards.
Yeah. I'm
sorry.
I was trying to
Did
let
they
it
have
go.
Melvin Gordon? Did they have Melvin Gordon run it?
Melvin Gordon ran it, fumbled it.
So he's not worth that money. Yeah. Didn't he fumble it twice? Was that what they were saying?
I don't remember.
He fumbled it twice in the game, but the second one was at the goal line.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was the Chargers, but the Chargers' offensive line was usually pretty good. I mean, Melvin Gordon's always been good every other year. So,
Corey Davis, your boy, maybe things are going to turn around for him.
Maybe
with Marcus Mariota no longer really being in the picture.
That was the thing holding him down. I mean, he's a good player. I mean, he has those. He has a couple games where he just kind of, if he gets the targets, he can play well, and they're throwing it to him. I mean, to me, it was Corey Davis. I was like, okay, he'll have value when he gets traded next year or when he signs somewhere else.
Seems like a great opportunity for somebody to try and buy him off of Treb.
Oh, he's for sale.
Do you still have him?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I started him. Yeah. Yeah. I still got Corey Davis.
AJ Brown for AJ Milos, stepping it up. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 64 yards. No touchdowns, but that's promising. You know, to see both those guys, like, they finally get their second receiver in Tennessee.
Yeah. A.J. Brown, he was the one rookie receiver going into last year that I was consistently like, okay, this is not a lock, but this is the most comfortable one I'm with. You know, N'Keal Harry, I think once he comes back, we'll get to the Patriots game later, but he could have a lot of value, but I think he was the one receiver that I wanted going to the season. I expected to be awesome. Obviously, Terry McLaurin would be ahead, but I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No. I think it was N'Keal, DK, and
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. Yeah. Then we have Saints Bears. Saints win 36-25. I have a lot to say on this one, but I want to let you guys jump in first. Saints 6-1, Bears 3-3. There's a lot to this.
Yeah. Let me pull up my stats.
Mitchell Trubisky is not a franchise quarterback.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I think they are moving on from him after this year.
Wow.
34 for 54, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns were in, I believe, the fourth quarter of this game where the game does not matter.
Kind of garbagey. 54 passing attempts, you only had 251 yards. That speaks volumes.
54. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, they were pretty. Did they move up? Didn't they trade up to get him? I think he was one of those guys that they traded up to get. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Your boy Allen Robinson, 16 targets, 10 for 87, 1 touchdown.
He's consistent. He gets a lot of targets.
Awesome.
Tariq Cohen also had 12 targets as well, but they can't run the ball. I mean, so Mitch threw it 54 times, but they also ran it 7 times.
Yes, it's just disgusting. That should never even be.
There's no innovative play calling. It's such a different offense, it feels like, compared to last year.
Yeah, I mean, with what was it? I said 7 to 54 passes. They're running it for every 8 times that they pass it, they run it once. How is that sustainable?
It's terribly unbalanced.
Yeah.
Like even if you're at 15 or 20 rushes for the game, like it's still imbalanced, but it's nowhere near as drastic as this. You're just giving everything to the defense there.
Yeah, and this is the Matt Nagy offense that everybody's going crazy for. He's got this awesome. He's innovative, and no, he's just trying to throw the ball every single down.
He didn't draft Trubisky. I'm pretty sure he came in the year after, and then. Yeah, we heard talks about him not liking Trubisky quite a few times in side conversations or whatever that were reported. I think they got to move on from him. There's no way this team should be at 3-3.
Well, and the thing is, good coaches find ways to win with players that they don't really pick. They make it work, which is what the Saints have done with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, Drew Brees comes out, Teddy Bridgewater comes in, and he looks amazing. He looks like a superstar.
Kamara goes down. Latavius Murray steps up.
Yeah, it's about being able to make it work with the guys you have. Michael Thomas, number 1 receiver in fantasy to me. I don't think he's
going to get the volume no matter what.
This Saints team just feels different compared to other years. There is depth top to bottom throughout this entire roster. They're most likely one of the more formidable teams in the NFC right now, vying for a Super Bowl. Teddy's performed admirably. Drew Brees talks about maybe coming back this week, a game time decision I've been hearing.
Yeah.
But overall, though, when you're evaluating this team, it's amazing. This is probably the first Saints team since the Super Bowl where they've had a real formidable front 7 on that defense.
Yeah. They look awesome, and I think there's a good chance that they were going to be in the playoffs or be in the Super Bowl last year. Based on how everything kind of shook out, obviously.
But they've been resilient to bad ref calls this year too.
And I think they could still. I mean, they're 6-1. They look like one of the top teams that could be there at the end.
I'd say they're in the top 5.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, just to go back to the Bears for 1 second, the Lions, who are in the same division as them, is 2-3-1, and we were talking about how they look nothing like a 2-3-1 team. And here you are with Chicago as a 3-3 record, where that, as great as that defense is, when you can't sustain drives as an offense and stuff, you're gonna get gassed and burned out. So.
Yeah, and they couldn't make stops this game. I mean, they got torched. 119 yards from Latavius Murray. He's averaging 4.4 per carry, and their defense should be stopping. I mean, their defense was pretty good against the run and the past couple of years, and they just kind of got exposed this game.
A lot of people would have looked at the Saints-Bears game as a playoff game coming into the season. Not so much. Ravens and Seahawks can't face in the playoffs unless it's in the Super Bowl, but this felt like a playoff game. Ravens took it home 30-16. Both teams are 5-2 now. Your boy Lamar booming.
He's looking amazing, and this is the crazy thing about this game was he had 116 rushing yards, and he's on pace to break all the records for rushing. This is kind of more of the passing game I would expect from him, where he only had 9, receptions, but he ran the ball 14 times, and they won. He only had 143 passing yards. This was at the beginning of the season more what I expected out of Lamar Jackson.
The receiving game this should be the expectations
Yes.
normally. This is why people avoided Marquise Brown in the first round of rookie drafts.
Yep. And Mark Andrews, this was kind of his down game. I think a lot of it had to do with Baltimore playing against kind of weaker defenses. The first couple weeks when he threw like 300 something yards, I was like, this isn't going to sustain. I saw how he played last year.
It was bad defenses.
Yeah, it was a lot to do with bad defense. But Seattle's defense is pretty good. But yeah, Baltimore was able to beat him.
Yeah, the only weakness you'd say in Lamar's game right now is his just ability still as a passer. He was still only 9 for 20 for 143 as a passer. But, the running lanes and the scramble ability to go for 14 carries for $116 and a touch. It was very Michael Vick-esque as far as his performance goes.
And that's what a lot of people are saying is that he's a different. They're like nothing they've ever faced, and it's akin to Michael Vick, where you just don't know what he's going to do with the ball. Michael Vick had a cannon; he could throw it, but he was also kind of inaccurate. But when he ran, he was faster than running backs, faster than receivers. He was like nothing else.
We were talking earlier about N'Keal Harry and AJ Brown, DK Metcalf. There's a reason why this guy was projected highly. If you take out his experience at the combine that a lot of people started poo-pooing him about, but he had 9 targets this week, 4 for 53, no touchdown. But this is starting to become his emergence. We know Russell is going to keep going to him. It's just confirmation. DK is good for the future.
And Russell Wilson is just, he's awesome.
He's a beast.
He didn't have, he didn't have an insane game this week, 241 yards and a touchdown. But he's a leader. He consistently puts up top 5 quarterback, top 10. He's always consistently up there. So he's a guy that you can trust.
I think the credit more so goes towards Baltimore's defense in this game more so than anything. You hold Russell Wilson to under 50% completion percentage throughout the entire game. I think that speaks volume. And to 16 points, where many people were talking about Russell Wilson as an MVP candidate throughout this portion of the NFL season. It was a back and forth game, and for Baltimore to go into Seattle, a hostile environment, and pull out the win. 5-2 right now, heading into the bye this coming week. They're good for a good
That's
healthy
a tough
stretch.
I didn't realize that it was in Seattle. That's a tough away game. Seattle's always consistently very, very good at home. So yeah, Baltimore, every time they'd win, I'm like, okay, well, maybe, but they seem to be the real deal.
This game felt like somewhat of a playoff game. A lot of people, including Dan, who couldn't make it here tonight, felt like the Sunday night game was a big playoff game. Ugh. This is such an amazing feeling for Cowboys fans after losing to the Jets,
which I just don't. I
to
don't
come
understand.
out and dominate the Eagles like they did. Cowboys 4-3, top of the division. Eagles go to 3-4. It was 37-10. It wasn't even close.
No, Wentz looked like crap. The problem is at the beginning of the game, they gave the ball away twice. They decided to receive. Okay, they fumbled it. Dallas scored a touchdown. Then they fumbled it again, and Dallas scored a touchdown right after that. And it was, from there, they had to claw their way back. They ended up scoring a touchdown, make it 14-7, and they had the ball again at 14-7, and just the wheels fell off. This Cowboys offensive line too, but the Cowboys defensive line, now that they're finally healthy, it's amazing. They really put the pressure on, and I think the big problem with the Eagles this game was that Jason Peters was out, and they were stuck using the rookie that they just drafted, and Robert Quinn just pushed him aside and was able to get to Wentz that he didn't have any time to do anything. But yeah, the Cowboys looked good. I still don't understand how they lost to the Jets. We'll talk about that game next, but I don't understand this team. They're just so inconsistent, I guess. Dak's inconsistent, but they beat the Eagles, and the Eagles aren't that bad. They're an okay team.
I expected a lot more from the Eagles for a team that 2 years ago won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
the expectation is high, and they're not playing up to snuff. This is the coach calling out a guarantee of a win is
Never.
so rare and stupid to do.
There's a reason no one does it.
Yeah, but like I can see the reason why he did it is he's like, my guys probably aren't performing the way they should be. I need to get them motivated, so I got to make a stupid statement like this to try and make them step up or something. Like I don't see any other reason why you do that.
Well, it was stupid. I mean, he definitely tried to motivate him, but the problem is when you lose a game like that, you tear your team apart too. So I don't love the move. Eagles will move on and hopefully shake this one off. They ended up taking a lot more risks because they were down by so much to try and catch up. So this score was, they were dominated by the Cowboys, but 27 is a lot to lose by.
Need more words.
Yeah.
The problem is, what is this identity on this Eagles offense right now? It seems like this offense has sort of went stagnant the minute Deshaun Jackson went down for his abdomen injury earlier this year.
Yeah.
You have nobody to stretch the field, so everybody's just sitting on those short and intermediate routes as far as the offense goes. And you see all these teams making moves for wide receivers. The Patriots, the Broncos. I feel like this would have been the time for Howie Roseman to potentially look around and evaluate. Granted, it may have backfired somewhat on him once with Golden Tate when they traded for a third-round pick and probably didn't get the production that they needed, but you do have the resources around you to make this run right now, and especially in an NFC East where it's potential that 9-7 could potentially win you that division.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean they needed to make a move. I mean, at first I was hoping they'd go for Jalen Ramsey to help that defense because obviously they can't stop the pass. Now it's getting that receiver, and Deshaun Jackson. Maybe they're just hopeful he comes back. Every week he's questionable, and then he just never practices and never plays.
And Carson Wentz needs to take care of the football more. He had 3 turnovers this game itself, 2 fumbles, the interception.
Yeah.
Overall, turnover battle. That's what matters when you win these games. There was essentially 3 fumbles that they had Philadelphia in this game on top of Wentz's turnover.
Yep.
And that really just set the stage for Cowboys to pin their ears back and stuff.
Yeah, I'm hoping they can play a little bit better going for as an Eagles fan, obviously, playing better. But yeah, I mean Dallas was the better team this week. There's no way of looking around it.
To me, it looks like somebody needs to step up and take lead of that team. No, there's no knock towards Wentz, but this is the type of scenario where leadership needs to step up and
definitely
regather the troops.
Yeah,
somebody who does that really well.
Sam Darnold. Is that the segue you're going for?
Oh, I hope he is in the future.
Yeah, hopefully.
But
this week he was seeing ghosts.
Tom Brady, baby.
Yeah.
Tom, this is awesome to watch Tom from a Pats fan perspective because every year you struggle with certain games. Like even though you have the odds are in your favor to get a win, but you struggle with seeing how Tom might struggle, and he is not struggling this year. It hasn't really been a challenge yet. Pats crush the Jets 33-0. Pats go to 7-0. Jets are 1-5.
Yeah. I mean, the story for me this game, and Brady's going to always be good. And, there's always going to be a running back. I mean, Sonny Michel had 3 touchdowns, but that was kind of just by chance of them being on the 1-yard line a bunch.
It's all variance.
The story to me this year with the Patriots is their defense.
Yep.
I expected them to shut out or shut down a Jets offense, but not like this. I mean, I don't know if it was the coaching on the Jets, and the announcers were kind of pointing at the coaching and the blocking lineups that they weren't able to stop that zero blitz, I guess was the big issue. But I don't know how you shut down a team the way that they shut down the Jets.
From what I understand, Darnold stubbed his toe, so that can make, if your toe's not functioning right, that can make you be off on how you're throwing and you're trying to protect and do things awkwardly.
And he was throwing from his back foot a lot, so that does make sense. But
the D did a lot, and we were talking about Darren Waller earlier about being him being winning people leagues for redraft this year. It's also going to be the Patriots D.
Yeah, absolutely.
This Patriots secondary is by far the best secondary in the league. You have Stephon Gilmore back there, the McCourty twins. Everybody on that secondary is just such a game-changing level that they can match up and lock up with anybody. And, as Belichick likes to do, he likes to take away your most superior weapon. And, I don't even know what that is, obviously, on the Jets right now, aside from maybe Le'Veon Bell.
Who still had an okay game. I mean, all things considered.
15 carries for 70 yards, one catch out of the backfield for 6 yards. But they were in that backfield all day long, making Sam Darnold's life a living hell.
Demaryius Thomas had 9 targets. once again, notice the target load is going to DT, not Robbie Anderson.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't expect Thomas to be out there in redraft leagues, but if he still is, go put him on your bench.
Well, Robbie Anderson did, to be fair, have 8 targets, which is hard to believe because he had 1 reception for 10 yards. But a lot of those targets were throws that were not even close. I mean, Darnold looked so bad this game. And this is a game he's just going to have to bundle up and throw away and just try and get past. I mean, 11 receptions, 4 interceptions. That's a 25% interception rate. Not even to mention that he completed the ball about 33% of the time.
And 2 of those interceptions were in the red zone. You have to take care of the football down there and such.
Yep.
When you're giving up, points right there down in the red zone, you're just
both interceptions were in the end. 2 of the interceptions were in the end zone.
It's very Baker-like.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean,
zing.
Yeah. I still have faith in Darnold. It's a tough team, and what do you guys think about Adam Gase? Do you think this loss is entirely on him?
I think Gase, the Jets should move on from Gase after this year. Just change it because you're going to get the same thing that happened down in Miami. Darnold is good for a developing young quarterback. You got to remember he's like 22. This is not, nobody should have expectations that Darnold's going to be a good quarterback this year. You just have to see promising things. He's supposed to develop. He has a lot of the traits that you want in a quarterback. Better than Daniel Jones, better than Dwayne Haskins, better than, a lot of these other young quarterbacks. But just because he's not getting it done doesn't mean you shouldn't have faith. I think Darnold's like great buy low target right now. I think it's the best thing in dynasty leagues.
Absolutely.
Everybody should be trying to soak him up right now.
Especially after this loss. I mean, it doesn't get any lower. And if you can find a Jets fan that's just on their last limbs, you just try and snap them up.
So looking back at this 2018 draft class now, there was, Darnold, Josh Allen, Baker. A lot of people said this draft class for quarterbacks was going to be great.
Josh Rosen.
You haven't really seen that development yet.
Lamar Jackson, yes.
Mm-hmm. He's probably the best one.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen's looked good. It has looked good. Sam Darnold's promising. Baker's very weird. Based on last year, looked extremely promising. Based off this year, looks like a miss.
Yeah.
And then Josh Rosen is just
hasn't gotten a chance.
Good luck. Let me give you bad luck all the time.
Yeah, I think to me the jury's still out on a lot of them. We've seen a lot of positives and negatives from all of them. Like literally all of them. Like Lamar Jackson's great, but I mean he threw 9 completions this week, so he's just a different style of quarterback. If I had to have one right now, it probably would be Josh Allen.
Agreed.
That's the one I'm happiest with.
I mean, we were just talking here 2 weeks ago about how inaccurate Josh Allen's looked and how turnover prone he has been.
But the opportunity exists. Josh Allen, his fantasy production. So remember, we're going from. Okay, so it depends which lens you want to go from. From a fantasy production lens, it's Lamar Jackson, hands down.
Yeah.
But then it's Josh Allen, number 2. From a long-term perspective, quarterback who's going to give you the best opportunity, I think it's Josh Allen, hands down. And
he can run the ball too. That's the thing that people kind of lose sight of. I think he had like 6 rushing touchdowns last year, and I expect him to have probably 6 to 8 this year. So he's a threat to throw and a threat to run.
Usually quarterback coaches, when they say give me a quarterback who has the talent, inaccuracy can be corrected. Like small little things can be corrected, but talent is not something you can.
Unless you're Tim Tebow,
right? Well, and don't forget Josh Allen's leading an offensive. I mean, who are their threats? Who are their superstar players on that offense? They don't have any. They have Frank Gore and they have John Brown, I guess.
Buffalo went through a stage of drafting a wide receiver every year. It seemed from Sammy Watkins on.
Yeah, now they learned better.
That was before Josh, and Josh Allen is light years better than Tim Tebow ever was. We got to keep that in mind. To compare Allen and Tebow is not even close.
Tim Tebow is better at building churches.
And baseball in the AAA.
Yeah, it's true. He's a better baseball player, but probably not better than Kyler Murray.
But I would expect Lamar Jackson's the best payoff short term if you want to win a championship. Long term, it's going to be Josh Allen and potentially Baker. But Baker, we got to see how things shake out. People are really sour on Baker right now. The funny part is Darnold was at the top before going into the draft. Like a lot of scouts, everybody had him significantly ahead of all the other quarterbacks. He has not parred up, but I think this is a youth thing.
Yeah, I think Baker needs to be humbled right now. It's funny, you watch the games and it's ever commercials with him, Hulu and this and that, Progressive, and it seems like he went Hollywood and he got so full of himself that he's not focusing or something. I don't really know, but he's not putting in the time maybe.
I don't know how much of it, like the offensive line is bad because of the injury that occurred, but It was not that great to begin with. It was really just that left tackle they needed, but now, like, I don't know, the weight is heavily on the offensive line. How much is on Baker? I mean, if you're getting rushed out of a pocket and you're seeing ghosts to make you do things, look what happened with Sam Darnold on Monday night. But that's kind of what's been happening with Baker too. So, like, I'm not giving excuses for them.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why that stuff's occurring.
Also, the front office there has made a lot of missteps. John Dorsey was supposed to come in and turn over this franchise and such, compared from the Sashi Brown era of stacking up draft picks. They traded Kevin Zeitler, who was one of the highest paid guards and a very well proven guard in the league, to the Giants for Olivier Vernon in the offseason, only to have Austin Corbett come up, who was their second round pick from the previous year, and take that spot. Then they just traded Austin Corbett this past week to the Los Angeles Rams for a 2021 fifth round pick. So on top of that, you're looking at the building of this team, the lack of a experienced coach to take this young quarterback and to hold in the reins of all the different egos that are inside this Cleveland Browns, organization. Yep. I think you have to go, if you're John Dorsey, you have to take a step back and say, maybe I didn't make the right move here in bringing in Freddie Kitchens and go out and find that experienced coach. Not saying you got to bring in Jeff Fisher to go 7-9, but you need to find that next coach.
7-9 Jeff
Fisher.
Fisher.
7-9 Jeff Fisher. You need to find that next coach that will be able to come in and say, all right, this is what we're going to have to do. And it has to be a better offensive-minded coach than what Freddie Kitchens can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how they perform after this bye week. They have a ton of talent. They have great Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. Like, they have a lot of talent on offense that they should be out there performing. So they just got to actually go out there and do it.
It's going to be a good week coming up because we'll find out if the Pats fall into the trap game against the Browns. I don't know. It's rough being a Browns fan.
The trap. Yeah, I mean, I'm still happy to be a Browns fan. We had to have losing in our blood ever since we started rooting for them this year.
I needed to see what it felt like to be a Jets fan.
Yeah, but now we can turn it around and start winning.
I like Nick Chubb.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, Odell is...
I wish David Njoku would stay healthy.
Yeah.
He'll be back. He'll be back this season.
Eventually.
Week 12. Well, good luck, everybody. And Ross, looks like you're going to deal off Kerryon Johnson to somebody soon since he just dinged out.
Yes.
Looks like
open to trade
on the block.
On the block.
He might be traded already by the time this airs.
He's working for peanuts.